Okay, so we're here with soon-to-be Dr. Maria Beagle, forensic psychologist, and this is volume 1 of serial killers. And today's serial killer is going to be about Ed Kemper, the famous Coed Killer.
Yes.
Okay, so Maria, what can you tell us about the Coed Killer, Ed Kemper?
So what's really interesting about him is the he helps with the struggle of nature versus nurture. So for those who don't understand or know what nature versus nurture is the idea that who we are is determined by either your genes, your genetic predisposition, or the environment and how we were raised.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to Edmund Kemper, I feel as though that's a really strong struggle to try and figure out if he was born bad or was the trauma he suffered when he was younger due to how he turned out.
Okay. Why don't you give us a little background of Ed Kemper, what his childhood was like and so on and so forth?
Sure. So he grew up with both of his parents. First of all, he was a very, very big baby. When he was born, he was 13 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, he was huge. And that is something to remember as we go on and we talk about Edmund Kemper. But so he was a very big baby. And growing up, he loved his father. His father appeared to be a very calm man. He was a hard worker. I believe he was a serviceman, electrician, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
His mother, on the other hand, was an alcoholic, appeared to have suffered with mental health issues, substance abuse, and she was very abusive towards him. She used to lock him in the basement. Mm-hmm. She was verbally abusive. She was just a very cold and very angry woman. And it appears through readings and research that she was like that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then
it's funny that you mentioned that his father was very calm and a hard worker and a very calm person.
Yes.
Because it seems like a woman who is as domineering as Ed Kemper's mother would only be with a man who's that easily dominated.
Yes. And as you can imagine, that relationship did not last. So she used to actually put his father down all the time, tell him he was worthless, he's just an electrician, and constantly put him down. So they eventually divorced. Mm-hmm. And Edmund Kemper was living with his mother, and it got to be too much for mom and him. He was growing to be a very big man. Mm-hmm. And I believe in his early teenage years, he was then sent to live with his father. His father at that time had remarried and had started a new family, and it appeared to be a very stable and healthy family unit. So Edmund Kemper, this huge, over 6 foot something young teenage boy, goes to live with them. And his father's wife, with whom is his stepmother, Edmund Kemper's stepmother, is kind of creeped out by him. He's a very awkward teenager boy, which you would understand because he was abused and thrown and locked in the basement. So he had some quirks and some odd mannerisms. Again, he was 6 foot whatever. So she was, his stepmom was very skittish and felt very unsafe with him there.
Okay.
So what's next? Where can Edmund go? So the next place he's sent to is his maternal grandparents.
On his father's side or the mother's side?
Maternal grandparents. Yep.
Oh, of course. Duh.
It's okay. So he's sent to live with his maternal grandparents, and history repeating itself. He loves his grandfather. His grandfather's a very calm man. Grandma, on the other hand, is not. She's very similar to her daughter, Edmund's mother. Mm-hmm. So he sees these similarities, and at around 15, he snaps. His grandfather goes grocery shopping, and while the grandfather's gone, Edmund takes the shotgun and shoots his grandmother and kills her. The first person he's killed. So in his mind, after he shoots his grandmother, he's like, oh my God, my grandfather's going to be coming home and I don't want him to see this. So he's sympathetic towards his grandfather. But what does he do? He shoots his grandfather when he gets home because he doesn't want his grandfather to have to live with the fact that his wife is dead.
My God. Now, how old was he when he did this?
I think about 15.
So 15 was his first murder, and it was his mother's parents, his grandparents.
Yes. Yep. So
that's just mind-boggling.
yes. So he goes to juvie. They love him there. He's like the superstar juvenile delinquent. He's very nice to everybody. He's very cooperative. His IQ, this is what always interested me. His IQ was tested. He was at 136. Average IQ is 80 to 100, I believe, or 80 to 110.
Yeah.
He's gifted. He's 136. He's incredibly intelligent.
So given the circumstances, if he had a normal upbringing, he could have possibly been very successful.
Possibly. But we'll get to that later because that question of nature versus nurture. There are a lot of kids who grew up in abusive homes and never killed anybody.
Good point. Very good point.
So that's the thing. And so he's in juvie, and I really don't remember how long he's there, but he's there, and the staff are like, you know what? He's so good, he should leave. And I think it was around 18. He gets to the point, and he's up for parole, and they approve it.
Didn't they test his IQ a second time?
Possibly.
Because I thought they tested it a second time, and it was as high as 145.
See, I thought I heard the 140s too. When I looked it up, I only saw 136, but I think you're right.
Okay.
Probably was tested again. Which is interesting because they say IQ never changes. So he's definitely between 130 or 135, 145. If you want to say average 140 IQ, which is damn near
exceptional.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so continue.
He's up for parole. He's approved for parole. But where are we going to send him?
Oh, God.
Where do they send him? To mom.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, where else could he go?
Nothing changed. He gets to mom and she's the same. Even though he's like 6'7", like he's huge, she is not scared of him. She treats him like garbage.
Yeah.
And he gets to the point where he actually, due to his probation conditions, he joins a community college. And he actually wants to be a cop. So he's in community college. He's working part-time. He earns money, and he gets his own apartment with a roommate. And things are going well for him. And then things start not to go well. Something, again, the switch turns on. And
was it his mother again?
She's always there. But
Yeah.
I think that's unclear, to be honest. I think he did have to go back to his mother. But this is when the killing started. He's known as the Coed Killer, but that was towards the end. In the beginning of his spree, he was killing prostitutes, which is very common. It's very common in like the 80s, 70s, 80s, because I want to make sure with that. You might have to edit me, but I have it up, and I could have swore he started with prostitutes.
I wouldn't be surprised, only because that is, for lack of a better term, easy prey in the 70s and 80s. Right? You could, they're usually outside at that point. They're selling themselves, get in the car, here's money, and then you could have your way with them.
So it says hitchhikers.
Okay.
Yeah, so
that's also easy prey. Okay.
Very easy prey.
Right. Especially
in the 80s, 70s, 80s, there were no cell phones. So these hitchhikers the assumption is they're not being missed. No one's going to miss them. No one's going to know where the heck they are. So he picked up hitchhikers and he would strangle them and smother them. He was a big man and he could do it.
Yeah, very easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was only women he killed, right? With the exception of his grandfather.
Correct. Yes. When he went on his spree, it was women he was killing. They were female victims, which, we can correlate that with the idea of him wanting to kill his mother.
Right.
Yeah. So
I think he had one or two women escape, right? until he figured out how to work the locks in his car. Didn't he put a roll of chapstick in the lock on his car so she couldn't actually grab the handle to run out of the car?
You might be right. I don't see that here, but you might be right.
Mm-hmm.
So it was 11 months he was doing this. I'm sorry, I kept saying 80s. It's in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
So for 11 months, he was killing hitchhikers. And then the last part of it was he went on a spree of killing the college students and then a high school student as well.
Really?
And that was, yes. And that was like the, not the end, because the end is very interesting. And keep in mind too that killing these women after they were dead, he was having sexual intercourse with them.
Right.
So he had some necrophilia going on there.
But it was decapitated sexual intercourse, though, wasn't it?
Well, that's the last one. Don't ruin it for everybody.
Oh, I thought that was everyone.
I think that was just the last one.
Wow. So he had to advance and step up his freakiness.
That was the cherry on the cake.
Wow.
So finally he's got all this built-in rage, and for 11 months he's killing all these girls, and finally he gets to the one that he really wants to do this to. He's been waiting so long, his entire life. And at his mother's house was his mother and her friend. He killed her friend, and he killed her mother, or his mother, I'm sorry. He decapitated his mother and had sex with her head.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Okay. So how did he wind up killing his mother and her friend?
What do you mean how? Like, how did he do it?
Yeah, how did he actually do it? Was it, I mean, I would assume killing his mother would be more violent than most, if that makes sense, because it's the one that drove him.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's why.
More of a torturous kind of thing.
And I think that's why that was the decapitation.
Ah, that makes sense. That's why he cut her head off. Didn't he also, from what I understand, he also took her, I think it was her vocal cords and put it in the garbage disposal?
I think, yes. I think that's correct.
Because of the constant nagging that was in his head, constant.
I mean, we've all wanted to do that to someone. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it's true. But that's the difference. You think about it and you don't do it.
Yes, that is the big difference. Big difference of mental health.
A lot of the things with famous serial killers, some of the stuff might be just some of the stuff just might be stories, like, kind of like exaggerations as opposed to the truth. Because I've heard things as crazy as he decapitated young girls, buried the heads in his mother's backyard with the heads facing up toward his mother's bedroom window, because he said his mother always wanted people to look up to her.
Oh, interesting. I never heard that.
So it might be just like kind of an exaggeration of the truth.
Yeah.
Or, it might be also fact, because it happens a lot, right? When you have an extraordinary human being, whether it's somebody as evil as Ed Kemper or not, exaggerations come from the stories. Mm-hmm. So go ahead. So he kills his mother and her friend, and he pretty much massacres his mother, decapitates her, has sex with his mother's head.
Yes.
Right?
So here to me is the best part. So when he was going to community college, he used to go to this bar, and a lot of police officers, when they were done with their shift, used to go to that bar too. And remember, he wanted to be a police officer. Mm-hmm. So he used to meet with police officers, and they became good friends with him. And they loved him. Like I said, when he was in juvie, they loved him. He was so likable. So now he does this. His all that pent up rage against his mother is finally completed because he killed her. Mm. And he worked up every fantasy he had and did it to her. So now he flees and goes to Colorado. In Colorado, he actually calls the police to tell them what he did. They don't believe him.
Really?
He had to call several times because they knew it was him on the phone. They knew his voice, and they didn't believe him. They thought he was joking.
Wow.
That's how much they liked him. That's how likable he was.
Well, why did he come to terms with actually turning himself in?
It's a good question, and I'm not entirely sure, but I think that comes a little later, and we'll get to that.
Okay.
There's a piece later on while he's in prison.
Okay.
So one of the police officers was like, let me just go check this woman's house, which is his mother. He checks. Obviously, it's like, holy crap, Edmund Kemper did this. They arrest him. They tried to plead insanity, and that didn't work. So after several parole attempts that have failed, he has said, the world is not ready for me, and I understand. And at one time I had heard that he had quoted that, if you let me out, I would do it again. That I'm not, I think that's true, but I had heard that quote before. So that's why I think there was some of that guilt and reason to confess. Is he was so smart. He knew what he did was wrong. And that's what I mean when I say nature versus nurture. Like you said, if he had that normal upbringing with a stable mother, would it have come to this? Or was he born this way? It's such a tight debate. And
yeah, it is a rough debate.
Like I said earlier too, there are many, many, many children who have been in abusive homes and don't turn out to be serial killers that cut off their mother's head and have sex.
Right.
With them.
But have there been serial killers that grew up in a healthy, loving environment?
Ted Bundy.
Really?
So he's one of the most interesting serial killers because they always tried to figure out what's the trauma. What is it? Because a lot of these guys have trauma.
Right.
Jeffrey Dahmer was abandoned by his mother and left with his alcoholic father. And he was a homosexual but didn't want to tell anyone. So he had that trauma. Ted Bundy is pretty interesting because they always tried to figure it out. And there's one thing that they thought could have been some sort of distortion, which we look at now in 2020 as like, yeah, all right, no big deal. Different in, I think he was in 1980s or 70s. He found out that he was a bastard, and no one knew.
Really?
Yes, the man involved with raising him wasn't really his father.
Wow.
So that was the only thing they had found with him. Which is, to me, is really interesting. So when you say that with, a lot of these guys have trauma, is anyone not? I believe Ted Bundy is in that category. Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah. And they say he could have over 30 to 40 victims.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll save him for next time.
Yeah. Next time we'll do Ted Bundy. But now getting back to Ed Kemper.
Yeah.
He was so intelligent. Did he know and realize he must have that he had this winning personality and was able to win people over, people of authority, the psychiatrist in prison, the police, so on and so forth, to get his way, if you will?
It's interesting. So manipulation is what you're talking about. Was he manipulative? Did he grow to be very manipulative? Was that just part of who he was? Or was that a survival technique, being in, an abusive home? I don't know. And I kind of feel like not really, because if he was so manipulative, he probably would have been paroled by now. He had so many parole hearings, and to the point where he even was like, no, I get it. I feel as though he wasn't. And according to Douglas, who I forget his first name, the FBI agent who started the behavioral unit and studying serial killers and whatnot, according to Douglas, he was so cooperative with him, and again, so likable, and it didn't seem manipulative.
But do you think he was torn? So what I mean by that, do you think he was like, okay, look, I have the ability to manipulate people, I have the ability to kill without any emotional attachment, but I know what's wrong, and I need to stay out of society? Do you think he was torn, or do you think it was by design?
I think he was torn. Absolutely. I think there's a part of him that would love to be free and love to live in this world. Maybe not now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, maybe not 2020.
Yeah.
But he's up for parole again in 2024. So hopefully we're not dealing with the same crap.
Well, he's got to be in his 70s at this point, right?
He's born 1948.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, yeah, yeah.
So like 71,
And I
72.
believe wasn't he sick? Didn't he have a stroke in prison or something like that?
Oh, might have. I didn't read that. I don't know too much about him in prison.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
oddly enough, him being in prison didn't interest me other than his interviews and
Well,
his.
yeah, it's because it's not interesting, but because from what I understand, when he was in prison, once again, people liked him. He was given a lot of jobs that he took pride in his jobs and so on and so
Mhm.
forth. He read a lot from the time he's in prison to that.
Yeah.
Here's a question:
Yeah.
why do you think people are so fascinated with serial killers? But it's not only serial killers. People are fascinated with serial killers, outlaw biker gangs, mafia figures. Why do you think people are so fascinated by these outlaw types?
So let's cover one thing. Let's talk about serial killers. And
Okay.
first and foremost, when we talk about serial killers, we connect it with forensics and the entire forensics field, because forensics, you have forensic science, which is CSI,
Mm-hmm.
then you have forensic psychology, which is mind hunters and criminal minds. So media, to me, is so apparent in the attraction of this. And what's unfortunate is a lot of young kids go into these fields thinking they are going to be that person. And then it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, that's usually the case.
Yeah. And unfortunately, like, so when I in my undergrad took forensic psychology, that's how I fell in love with it. It was one class. There was one class and I fell in love, and I asked the professor, because that time I was hooked on CSI. I said, "Is CSI?" And he's like, "Nah." And I'm like, "Oh no, don't tell me that." And he said, "Actually," he goes, "how they gather evidence is very accurate." He said, "It's not a team of 5. You have like a team of 100 people doing it, because you have an entire team only working on footprints. You have an entire team working on fibers.
I see.
They're not just one person that's skilled in everything."
Right, right, right,
So,
right, right.
that's what people don't understand. And you have to keep in mind too that a lot of this is new, not serial killers. Serial killers have been around. I mean, you're talking about God, what, Jack the Ripper?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I'm sure they existed before that.
exactly. Yes. But the apparency and the understandings is very new.
Mm-hmm.
One of the first known criminal profiling cases was the Mad Bomber. And that's very interesting too. That took place in the 60s, I believe, 50s, 60s. And they went up to this, they asked the psychologist for help, and they gave him pictures of these bombings. And just from the bombings, he was able to profile the bomber to what he was wearing. He's like, when you arrest him, he will wear a double-breasted suit.
Really?
This information, and they were right. He was right. It was absolutely amazing.
Wow, wow, wow.
But that's and that's new. That's only like 60 years ago. That's new.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we're still learning. So the attraction in the end, when you talk about serial killers and forensics, is how new it is, and the media,
Mm-hmm.
and entertainment. Entertainment is, it attracts us so many different ways. Yeah, biker gangs. I mean, Sons of Anarchy. Oh my God, you want to
Right,
gang
right.
like after watching it, and they weren't nice people.
No, I think there is something about people that exist in society but outside the rules that attracts normal people, because I think it seems just so attractive, because we go to work every day and we have a normal life. So we go to work, we have families, we have responsibilities, but the people that kind of live outside those rules, they don't have a regular job, but they still can earn a living.
Mm-hmm.
They live by their own code, if you will, within society. There's something so
Attractive.
it really is. And that's why every time you put on the History Channel, especially on a Sunday when men are home,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
always either a mafia history thing on, biker gang thing on, serial killer, drug dealers. There are so many Pablo Escobar documentaries, movies, TV shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
Well, think about the like first villain you were rooting for, Robin Hood. And the story of
right,
Robin Hood. He
right,
robbed
right.
from the rich and gave to the poor. And,
Sure,
he's
sure.
like the first villain we were all so attracted to, if you think about it. So,
But with serial killers, it's completely different. They are, even though there is a psychological evaluation, they are pure evil for
yeah.
the most part, or for putting it simply. There is no like going into the underworld because you're deprived and you have to support your family and you want to make money, like drug dealers, mafia, biker gangs, so on and so forth. This is a person that kills just for the thrill of it. A lot of
Yes.
times it's a sexual thing, a sexual desire, and that's all it is. It
Well, like we discussed too, is trauma.
right. No, what I mean by that is there's no other gain from it than with a desire within.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the other villains, they do it for power, they do it for money, they do it for just to survive.
And that's a part of us that we can understand.
Right?
Yes, and we can somewhat relate to, like
right. But whereas serial killers, it goes deeper, and the attraction to it for regular people is still there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is odd, because I could understand why people are attracted to people in the underworld that become very powerful because they escaped police, they've escaped normal rules and regulations that we all abide by.
Yeah.
Now, here's another question.
Yeah.
It seems like from the 60s to the 80s seems to be this peak of serial killers.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of dies down. In the 90s, you still had a few, but it kind of dies down after that. And now you rarely see any of it. Is it something that the media just doesn't harp on anymore? Or is there help now as there wasn't then? Because I feel like there's been a shift from serial killers to mass shootings. Because there's mass shootings several times a year, and you don't hear about any serial killers anymore.
So here's the thing. My favorite channel to watch is the ID channel. I have it on 24/7. I love it. Which I swear I'm not crazy, but I love it. And when you watch it, you will see that there are actually so many. My husband and I said this, when we watch the ID channel, we feel like we've never watched the same case twice.
Okay.
It's just scary. So if you're watching the ID channel 24 hours a day and each one is an hour, that's 24 killers they're basically talking about, or disappearances or stuff like that, a day, 360. So do the math. There are so many still out there. I think, excuse me, I think what happens is the interest kind of regresses when technology starts to get involved, and maybe they're caught quicker. Maybe they're,
I see. Okay.
I'm not entirely sure why the attraction has shifted. But they're definitely, they're still there. They really are. You just take a day, take 3 hours, put that channel on, and you will see a bunch and hear a bunch.
So they're out there.
Absolutely.
It's just that the media doesn't fantasize as much as they used to.
And to what you're saying, yes. And to what you're saying, I haven't seen cases that are so incredibly new. What I'm seeing more of is they're solving cases from the past because of technology.
Okay.
I sent that one link to you. He was a serial rapist for years. It turned out he was a cop.
Yeah.
And they got him through technology, through, I don't know if it was DNA or what, but yeah. So
what you're saying is they're out there, that's just getting caught quicker because of technology.
I think
because of DNA. Well, that makes sense, right? Because in the 60s to the 80s, I mean, the technology was limited. I mean,
very limited. Yeah.
surveillance wasn't there, DNA wasn't there, cell phones weren't there.
You relied on eyewitness testimony a lot of times, and God,
which is not really too
not reliable.
Yeah.
No. So we've come a long way, but they are still out there. Trauma is still there. There are still sick, abusive parents, and unfortunately, that just keeps going. That shift just keeps that cycle, I should say, just keeps going and going and going, and it's so sad. And I do feel bad when I taught last year. And I brought up serial killers. I was telling my students that, I'm really interested in it. And they said these words, who is your favorite? And I'm like, wow, I have a favorite, and I hate to say it's my favorite because in the end, this person killed AP. Edmund Kemper is my favorite. Yeah. But I hate saying my favorite. I'll say I'm most interested in Edmund Kemper.
Who's the favorite person that chopped up human beings and ate them and had sex with their heads?
How terrible is it for the victims' families? Could you imagine being
I can't even
of a victim and someone's like, oh my God, he was like my favorite. It's like,
yeah, you're as twisted as he is.
Yeah, not the right word. So, but I mean, that's media too. Like they do, and it's not the media's fault. I hate blaming media for everything. It's, it's an attraction. We're attracted to it. And
I mean, it is partially the media's fault because there have been copycat killers, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't know too much about them.
Right. We could look into them, but I know that there have been copycat killers because I know that a lot of look, I don't remember his name, but he was American, but he was from Spanish descent.
Okay.
And the media had so much information on him, and he was constantly on TV and in the papers, that when he went to his hearing, he knew he was something of a celebrity at this point, and he wore these sunglasses, and there were girls that were actually in the trial, and they were kind
Ramirez?
of, what was his name?
Ramirez?
I believe so. And he had girls there that were really like in love with him or enthralled by him and so on and so forth. And
Charles Manson.
And oh my God. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, technically he really wasn't a serial killer because he didn't do any of the killings.
He was a puppeteer.
Yeah. And that was another possible rumor that Ed Kemper had no respect for him because he didn't get his hands dirty.
So now you've seen Mindhunters. I don't know how true that interview is.
I don't know how true it is, but it makes sense.
It's so funny. And he says, which is really funny. And again, we're going by a movie or a show, and there's some, it's historical fiction, so a lot of it is true, but there are some they have to add on.
Sure.
So when he says, don't make any comments about his height. Because
yeah.
Because when they do see him, he's like so short.
Yeah, he's kind of almost telling them, make a comment about his height.
Yeah.
But why this transition in the last 20 years or so to mass shootings?
I think you're talking about a different breed. Because I don't think they're not considered serial killers. But
not at all. But it's definitely an angry person.
Yeah.
But they kind of just
talk about trauma. Most of them have suffered a great deal of trauma that goes either unnoticed or just kind of pushed to the side. Columbine, they were bullied.
Right, exactly.
And everyone just pushed it to the side. And it's really, really sad. My thing is, I don't know if it's just somewhat easier, get it done and over with, bomb them, shoot them, but that's the difference. Like serial killers are methodical,
right?
Planners.
Yeah.
And
more intellectual, obviously.
Yes.
It doesn't take much to take a semi-automatic weapon and just start shooting up a church or a school. It just seems, I I don't know. You know, it just seems odd that it coincides with society becoming more of a, you know, I want it all now, right?
Yeah, could be.
To and then there's this shift to mass shootings as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a shift in personalities in people in general. Like you said, work ethic is huge. Work ethic 30 years ago was like people who had 3 jobs when they were like 15.
Right, right, right,
Now,
right.
you know, people, these 15-year-olds sometimes are struggling to just keep one part-time job. I'm not talking
Yeah.
about 15-year-olds. I don't want 15-year-olds to attack me. I'm not saying
No,
that.
but it happens to be true. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
you know, 30, 40, 50 years ago, um, the work ethic was greater. I mean, it's
yeah.
just the case. And so that, do you think that's actually what dictated the difference between a serial killer and a mass shooter? Is that it's just a delusional person or a sick person with work ethic? I mean, it's strange to think about, but it's a possibility.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not really, I don't know. I wonder if there has been a study on that, you know, but yeah, I think parenting styles, I mean, you know, trauma is trauma, but there are different forms of trauma. And I think parenting styles are part of it. Technology, you know, if you think about it, you know, technology now is just so incredibly great
Right,
compared to even 10 years ago.
right, right.
So do you remember being, for you, maybe in your 20s, early 20s, downloading music? How long did that take?
Oh, forget it. It was forever. I was still buying CDs.
Day. If you wanted to make a CD of 15 songs, it took the day. And we had the patience to wait the day to make a CD.
Right,
Now, God forbid the Wi-Fi goes out.
right, 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 right,
No
right,
one
right.
has patience. Oh my God, I can't do that. Da, 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 and they're like, I have to restart my phone, you know, like, so
So there is a possibility that that's why there's a shift from serial killers to mass shootings.
could be.
You know, the lack of patience, the lack of work ethic, except that they're still damaged, they're still sick,
Yeah.
they still need help,
Yeah.
and I mean, it's a possibility. I don't know. I never read any, you know, articles on it or spoke to any professionals about it. I'm just taking a educated guess
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that might be what it is, because you hear about, I mean mass shootings don't even make front page news unless you kill 10 people or more now,
Mhm.
you know. um
It's got to fit, you know, anything in the news has to fit the criteria, whatever their criteria is. And they know it. They're winning because,
right.
so, but no, serial killers aren't really making it in the news. And I kind of wonder too if the investigators prefer that. If they're
Hmm.
investigating someone who's doing what they're doing, do they want it out there? Do they want to give that person the satisfaction that they are out there, they are killing, and they are not caught? And
Right.
it is publicized that this person who we don't know is killing these people, and we have not caught them. That's got to be satisfying for that person.
Yeah,
And
but the flip side of that is they might like the idea, um the police might like the idea of being publicized, because then that will lead them to do it again, so then that gives them a better shot of catching them next time.
possibly could make them sloppy. I think it
Right.
depends on, I think that's why we have the, you know, the forensics we do now and the profiling to determine which is it. Like you said, you know, is he going to get sloppy if we blast him in the news, or are we just going to keep creating a monster here? And,
Hmm.
you know, that's part of profiling too.
Well, maybe next time. Has there been any serial killers who have never been caught?
Yes.
I'm
Well,
pretty sure
Jeffrey
the Zodiac.
technically was never caught.
Right, right, right. I'm pretty sure the Zodiac killer was never caught. Right.
I believe so. Sorry, my computer's going nuts. Yeah, I gotta. I know there are. I know there are
Yeah.
killers out there, um, and there's ones that had. God, it took so long. Was it the Green River Killer? It took for. They took forever to get, or did they not? Ooh, that's a good one. We have to find out. I
Yeah,
think
we have to do more about
more research.
more research on that one. But Ed Kemper was definitely a good starting point because he's somewhat of
Still alive.
he's still alive. He's somewhat of a icon in the serial killer world, if you will.
I do think
And
if I was,
he encapsulates all the intelligence, the strength, the size, the sexual desire,
trauma.
the mommy problems.
Yep.
It kind of he kind of defines the entire serial killer kind of definition.
Yeah.
He checks all the boxes, if you will.
Yeah. He does.
Right? He checks all the boxes. So it's a good way. It's a good way to start. Whereas somebody like Charles Manson is more like a pimp,
Yeah.
right? It's true. He's more like a pimp. He thrives on girls who have nowhere to go and need social acceptance.
Yeah. Yeah. He's not one of my, God, I hate saying favorites. I'm not really that interested in Charles Manson.
No, me neither. Because of that.
Oh, actually, I
Because
am.
of that. Because there is something about a man who manipulates women that I find really disgusting.
Yeah.
First of all, it goes against everything a man is.
Or should
Okay.
be.
Yeah, or should be. Men usually aren't the manipulative types. Men are usually the go-getters, the aggressors, the producers, the actual person that is going to actually get your hands dirty, if you will. So if I was a serial killer, I'd be more like Ed Kemper, right? But when a man acts in a manipulative way to get what he wants
Yeah.
from women, and you're kind of targeting weak women or women that wish they had social acceptance at a young age.
Yeah.
To me, there is no lower form of a person.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it in simple relationships, right? You see simple relationships, and I don't want to mention any names, but we have family, and you know who I'm talking about, who the woman goes out and makes a great living, and for some reason, that man that she's with just takes full advantage of her. Never has to work, never has to do anything, so on and so forth, and he just has this hold on her for some reason. And to me, there is nothing lower than that. I don't know why. I mean, I have no problem with mafia figures or gang leaders or the Bloods and the Crips. I think, you know what I mean? I'm saying, I know they're criminals, but
Yeah.
it's strange. They're doing it in a masculine way, which I could understand. But when a man does it in a manipulative way, to me, that doesn't define masculinity. And that's the worst type of criminal to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. That's just my opinion.
It makes sense. Like I said, he's not the most interesting, I think, figure. And do you call him a serial killer? I mean, excuse me. I'm not entirely sure. To me, he's just a puppeteer.
Yeah, he's a pimp because pimps do the same thing, right? I mean, literally.
Yeah.
They just do it for money instead of some sick world order that he wanted to do.
Yeah. So it sounds like you have more respect for people who, if they want something, they do it, they get it themselves.
Right.
As opposed to using others.
Exactly.
Users. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, those aren't interesting. What's interesting to me actually more with Charles Manson is when he was in prison and everything that surrounded him, the letters he got, that he got married. I mean, my God.
Was unbelievable. That's another thing we should do. That's another thing we should do an episode on. We should do an episode on that women that are in love with career criminals or women that fall in love with serial killers and so on and so forth.
Yeah. You know what I always attribute it to is it's like when you go to a dive bar and you feel better about yourself.
Yeah. Some women just want to have that hold over you. Hey, listen.
Yes.
You have nothing to talk about. You're in jail. You killed 8 girls. Okay. I have my shit together here.
I'm a 6. You're a 1. You should be happy you have me.
Yeah. Right. That might be a possibility. I mean, it's extreme, but it might be a possibility.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's more to it though. Like, I mean, Ted Bundy, I believe he did marry, I mean, he had a long-term girlfriend. He gets caught. She stands by him briefly. and more started to come out. And she's like, no, wait a minute, he is. And then there was a woman who believed every word he said, and they had a conjugal visit, and they even had a child. So,
oh my God.
Ted Bundy has a daughter somewhere. It changed her name, obviously, and I don't know where she is. No one knows where she is, but yeah, like, you know, people just they believed him, loved him. And honestly, in his defense, he was a lovable man, not lovable, but attractive personality and physically. But
Yeah, he was a handsome guy.
blinded, and you know, stood by him. So.
We really have to go into why women love criminals, why they love serial killers, why they love these extreme figures, because you know,
And you mean love romantically? Let's get
yeah,
that
right. Oh yeah. I'm talking about like completely passionate for, or enthralled by, or not in love with the man, but in love in what he encapsulates. You know what I mean? Like in love with the actual character of the man. Not that's what's the wrong word to use. In love with the status of that kind of man. It's just seems strange because when you think of
he's a doer, like you said.
yeah, I don't know, because it seems strange, because most women, right?
Yeah.
Majority of women want a relationship and stability, and they want togetherness, and they want a family, and that is usually the basic instinct of a woman, right? But then you go with this, and you take
provider. Women want providers.
Right. And then you go into this direction, and it's like, you might as well marry a character in your favorite novel, because there is nothing.
Like there's got to be a mental health issue there somewhere.
Yeah.
Somewhere there just has to be.
Yeah.
Or attention seeking. Like, I married Charles Manson.
Right.
I am Charles Manson's wife. If you're going to get attention, that's the way to do it.
That's true. That is true. Well, did you see that the second season of Making a Murder?
I have not, no, because every now and then I'll watch. Like I said, I watch the ID channel nonstop. But Making a Murder is really good. I have
he is. And the second season's not as good as the first one, but in the second season, he's still in prison, and he has this girlfriend who is absolutely beautiful.
Who's he? Do you remember who he was?
I forgot the character's name that went to prison for, first it was rape, and then it was murder, but it was obviously, from the information they gave us, it was obviously not true. And he's supposedly he's innocent, doing life in prison. I forgot his name. I totally forgot his name.
Yeah. No,
but he's in prison, and his girlfriend in prison, I don't think it lasted, but she was absolutely beautiful. And he, of course, was like, he was in love with this person because, let's face it, men are just intrigued by beauty, right? Yeah. And here is a guy who was like this average Midwestern guy who was just like worked in his father's, body shop, I think, right?
Hit the lottery.
Yeah, and it's like, wow, I came to prison and I met the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life. It's just the strangest thing. It's got to go deeper. We should definitely do one episode on that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of it's attention. A lot of it is making themselves feel better. And there's a lot to it. I do believe that. Going back to Edmund Kemper, honestly, if I ever met him, first of all, I'm 4'11". So
yeah, he's 6'9", right?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So I honestly would ask him, because he's so smart and he's so in tuned from what, interviews have told us. My question to him would be, if he believed it was nature or nurture, where would he, where does he think? Does he just blame his mom and call it a day? Or
he doesn't seem like the type that would not be complete. He doesn't seem like the type that wouldn't be accountable.
Yeah, I know. And that's so interesting. Yes.
Right? Yes. He doesn't seem, because he's the one that said, listen, he called the police.
He owned it.
He said, I did it. He doesn't seem, he's not the person, well, I had a terrible mother and I did it because she was terrible. that would be a very, very good question.
They tried once when he initially was arrested. They tried the insanity plea to get off. He didn't get off, and after a while, he's like, "It is what it is, and society's not ready for me." He says.
And I did it. How many people did he kill total?
I think it's 8. I think he was charged for 8 murders. Oh, so here it is. It says Kemper was indicted on 8 counts of first-degree murder in 1973.
Does that include his grandparents or no?
No, because that would be, he did his time for that.
So he's up to 10.
10.
Which really isn't such great numbers for mass killers, if you really think about it. A guy sitting in prison right now doing a mass killing is like, what, 10? I could do that with 1 clip of my rifle. That's nothing.
You just bomb.
Yeah, right.
Your car, my God, you could kill how many people with your car?
Yeah, right. You just run people over. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So I would love to hear what he'd have to say with that. And maybe there are interviews with that. Maybe he was asked that question, what happened,
I know the actual interviews that they portray on Mindhunters are on YouTube.
Yeah.
I've never watched the entire thing, but I know those interviews are on YouTube and you can watch them.
So my first residency I did for going for my doctorate, one of the professors is very good friends with the officers who started the criminal behavior unit.
Really?
So he said that my hunters did a pretty good job with how the interviews went and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many serial killers to get to. We're going to be pretty busy.
Yeah, I know. And there's some like I said, there's so many out there that people don't know about.
Right.
A good show on the ID channel is, oh goodness, I forget what it's called, but Evil Lives Here.
Really?
So a lot of times it's the children of serial killers who had no idea that their father was doing what he was doing.
Okay.
Yes. So it's interviewing, they interview children who are older, their 40s, and they just go through their life with their mothers and fathers. And as they go through, it's like, I started to notice these things. And then it wasn't until he was arrested and charged, you're like, oh my God, my father was a serial killer.
That's amazing. Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, that's more of a mafia hitman kind of thing, where I do my job and then I come home to my family and everything is fine.
They have no clue.
No idea.
There's some little personality defects, and kids are like, oh, that's weird. But then they brush it off because 90% of the time he's fine.
Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a great show. Evil Lives Here. And you can that's what I basically was getting at. It's just like there's no repeat. Serial killers that we've never heard of.
Right. Well, this was a great volume 1, and it seems like there's going to be many, many volumes.
I hope people get into it. I hope they like it. It's so interesting. It really is.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody that I've told that I'm going to start doing this with you, everybody was like, "Oh, I can't wait," because I'm not just stroking your ego, but this is going to be video number 9, the first of the serial killer ones, though. And every person either likes the one I did with you the most or the one I did with my mother the most.
You need a female sidekick. That's what it is.
I know. Yeah. Believe me, it's not easy.
Balance it out.
Not easy to find one. Believe me, I've been trying.
Yeah.
All right. Well, soon to be Dr. Maria Beagle, I appreciate you doing this and thank you so much.
No problem. This was fun.
And that concludes this volume 1 of serial killers, and I don't know, we have to wait and see what volume 2 is going to be about.
Yeah, we have to pick another one.
Yeah,
not our favorites, because that's not the word we want to use. Interesting.
Yeah, that's right. Another interesting one.
Interesting.
Maybe we should do another interesting one that people never heard of.
Yes, I would love that. Like I said, cuz put on the TV and just watch. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah. You're right. I'm gonna have to do that. I'm gonna have to do a little research myself.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you again, cousin.
No problem.
And I will see you soon. And remember, DM me at Serious and Silliness at Instagram, or email me at unclejohn1201 at Gmail. All right. Serious and Silliness fuckers. Later.
Bye.